How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lo4f, and today we've got a bit of a long one. That's what she said, of course. Yeah, it's lost cargo, which the mission itself isn't too bad, but I did this the other day, or at least like the first half of it, and then I ended up doing the second half, but I don't know. I was kind of in autopilot mode. I kind of didn't even realise I'd finished this mission until about a day later. Yeah, so I've got to go to the Burn Forest map and get 3 concrete slabs. So first thing is getting to the Burn Forest map. And yeah, for this one, just going to have to embrace the slowness. Like I say, it ended up being a bit of a longer mission, really. Once I get to Burn Forest, you've got the 3 concrete slabs there, and then essentially going to follow the wiggly road along to this quarry, and you've got to go down into the quarry. The road down into there is not... It's not like you have to do multiple laps or anything. Yeah, that's the destination. Like, you got to drop them off, and you can see the 3 concrete slabs highlighted there, which is sort of sat just behind that warehouse. On Burn Forest. So yeah, for this one you're going to need, like, each concrete slab is 2 slots, so you're going to need 6 slots of cargo. And yeah, when, I don't know, I was probably feeling good that night with doing the mission. I just kind of figured I'd take this. Again, this was before I ended up doing then, I think, that lap around the Burning Mill track. And then I also did, I can't remember the name of the mission now, I think it was only yesterday as well. Been one of them nights. Yeah, I already knew this was going to be a lot slower getting to the Burn Forest map, but I kind of figured if you could at least get its foot down a little bit. I mean, again, as I was going along that road, it's not too bad, but it's like when you hit the mud like that, it just just bleeds way too much. So, well, as you can see now, I'm trying to switch between auto and high. High is obviously not that thrilling, really, in like the advanced special gearboxes. When I go into high-low with the diffs on, it's kind of a similar speed, really. In theory it should be slower because just that ratio of gears is slower, but yeah, there isn't actually that much difference between high gear, 5th gear and high-low, which particularly, you know, between 5th gear and high-low there should be quite a considerable difference, but I think just being able to put the diffs on once you're in the low range, that just at least helps with, like, the amount of power the each tyre's bleeding, so it just kind of averages out to pretty similar. And yeah, obviously got a goddamn horse on me. Never leave home without him. For this one, we should have enough supplies, really. I've obviously got the Lo4f rack, which is a beast. He's packing major roof rack. I think he's got about double the points of this Derry. I like to say, it's one of them where I really wanted to like this vehicle. I still tried to like it. I mean, even say doing this mission, I wouldn't be doing this mission in like the Derry Longhorn 4520 or something like that. Funnily enough though, like it said as well, this is a Derry, and it's I don't know if they've got something against the real company Oshkosh, but they always seem to make it kind of on the disappointing side, which is a bit odd, because other than the fact it should be like a bit of a flagship brand in this game, they've kind of... Derry 3194 or whatever it is kind of, say, middle of the road or whatever, but yeah, they certainly priced, and the level to unlock the Derry 4520 was made it kind of seem like the flagship truck. And then this, yeah, just as far as DLC trucks go, they've actually given us a few decent ones. I might do a video soon. I was thinking of this the other night, picking like my top 5 DLC trucks, because I've done my top 10 trucks, but now we've actually had like a fair few DLC releases and the various different vehicles from each phase. Obviously a fair chunk of them are just kind of sat gathering dust in my garage once I've reviewed them and this and that. Some of them though, I don't know, the Phoenix for example, and yeah, the Zix, there's a few of them, so I might do a video on what I think are like the top 5 best DLC. Probably top 5, I think top 10 is probably a bit much. But yeah, like I say, this easily could have and should have quite firmly taken one of those top 5 spots, really. Still like the look of it though, it does look the part. I've seen the, yeah, because the real vehicle is an Oshkosh. Is it like a Hemet, or is HEMETT or something? I assume that's an acronym for something, I'm not sure what. But it's like some big, yeah, heavy army sort of vehicle. Like I said, I've seen a few videos of them on the old YouTube, and it looks pretty cool. It's cool that it's in the game. I think as well, I'm not even sure at the minute if I raise the suspension or not. To a degree, I don't really find it makes that much difference with this thing. I don't really think that's the main issue, although I do think the suspension is very solid, so when you bounce along, it kind of, yeah, you don't really absorb the bounce, it sort of rattles the whole truck, and you kind of, sometimes you can bleed a bit of speed like that. But yeah, you can see I'm inclined up this hill. Yeah, takes a bit of going. Yeah, when I got up today, my mum was ringing me because my granddad was sounding pretty ill, so I spent sort of the first half of the night down there, really. It was not sounding good. He's sort of just, yeah, making like, going here every time he was breathing and that, and I don't know, he's, like I say, he's soldiering through. He sort of seemed to get a bit tired, then perked up a bit, and then, yeah, at one point it was like, bloody hell, sort of probably going to be gone in the next hour, and then, yeah, he started sort of bouncing back and talking a bit, and then he wanted to go sleep, so I just went downstairs a little bit ago just to basically go and check if he's still alive, and he's not really snoring, but he's breathing away, he sounds fine, so, well, relatively speaking. Yeah, so it's been a bit of one of them nights, that's why well, I wanted to get this video edited anyway, kind of, but yeah, I've not even been on the game tonight. You can see there as well, I got stuck, I think it's roots or something, in that water section, but I've been through there in other vehicles that don't get stuck. And again, considering this thing's got pretty monstrous tyres, and I actually think, like, the ground clearance with the nose is pretty good, because the nose of the truck sits quite high. You can more see, like, the front diff and the front of the axle more than anything, but it doesn't behave to where it's got good ground clearance, like whatever route I got caught on there. There's a few things where this gets caught. Those kind of burned trees as well, in the burned sections of the forest on this phase, they hook onto the chassis a lot, whereas, again, I think it was Dan, I ended up doing the first half of this mission, so basically driving from the garage to now I'm heading to the gateway, in Dan, and it took about half the time, but two things I remember is that he drove through that water section and didn't catch on those routes, and also, yeah, those trees in the burned forest section, he just sort of rolls over them. So you can see, in all that time, with nearly 8 minutes into the video, I'm kind of still really only down the road from the garage. I've basically gone across the stream, and then sort of done the wiggly road section. So I ended up going back to the garage, getting an ANK 38 civilian. I was just curious, I wanted to see, like, if I made sure I turned the engine on and handbrake off and everything on the Derry, if I was towing it like this, if it actually speed anything up a little bit, but that didn't even really help. You can see even in high gear I'm probably just still going about the same speed the Derry would anyway. Which, yeah, I mean, it wasn't particularly a well thought out plan. I was just, as it was going slow, I figured, like, while I'm kind of near the garage, I was curious to see if it'd even gain a few miles an hour. Yeah, it might possibly be worth it, but as you can see, if anything, it was as slow, but possibly even slower right now. I don't think these muds, though, as well, I've said it before loads of times, I like the muds on this ANK because they sit wider and all the rest of it, but I always do find they're a little bit lacking in the grip department, and sort of going through the muddy section I am now. Yeah, I'm going even slower than I think the Derry was under its own steam. Hence why now I'm going wide on this corner, because I was just going to move this out of the way and carry on my own steam, release the handbrake. I think high gear kicked in a bit. Got a bit of a wheelie on the go, rolled it. It's not getting back to its wheels. Which I should have just left it at this point, but I ended up flipping it before I set off, just because I thought, on the off chance if anything happens, or if I need it, or whatever. It's one of them. If there's a vehicle sat in the middle of the this map, obviously if it's on its roof, I can access it, but I can't do anything with it, so yeah, I may as well rescue it, so who knows. Although, like, now I sort of need to keep removing vehicles. They've obviously done something from the last phase to this phase, because even, for example, when I went and tested on Burning Mill on that racetrack, and yeah, I was spawning vehicles on that map, they were staying invisible kind of when I go and look on the you know, the truck list and everything on the map. Those vehicles weren't showing up and they were just invisible on the map as well. But as soon as I deleted one vehicle off the Burning Mill map, one vehicle showed up, which was the Lo4f, because that's what I spawned first, and then the Derry showed up, and then I deleted another vehicle and the Antarctic or whatever showed up. So it's like, there's obviously something they've done, because the chances of me being like exactly on the limit to where I delete one vehicle and it's now got enough room to show me one of my new vehicles is unlikely. It's obviously just whatever number of vehicles I had spawned on Burning Mill, it just counted that as sort of the max and it won't let me go over that. And yeah, that's what this phase has been doing as well. So they seem to have messed something up as far as all the memory. It seems to be the way the memory works. I mean, even as well, like I've been getting blue screened on my mod playthrough particularly, although I've had it happen a couple of times now on this playthrough as well. But yeah, the mod playthrough, it seems, I don't know, there's just something kind of like memory related that seems to, the game just freaks out and yeah, blue screens me. And yeah, as well, as Mark Rose was saying in the comments the other day, this game's pretty much coming up 3 years old now, isn't it? I remember it was like, yeah, at the end of April. Because if I remember correctly, when they started doing the COVID lockdown, or at least in the UK, I think that must have been then at like the beginning of April or the end of March, because I think there was about 3 to 4 weeks until this game released. Because I remember at the time people were kind of asking the devs on YouTube videos and all sorts, like, can you just release the game 3 weeks early? Because at the time we all thought like there'll be a 3-week lockdown, so it was kind of where, you know, 3-week lockdown to flatten the curve, sort of 2 years later, etc. But yeah, at the time everyone thought, oh, we're just going to be sat in the house all day for 3 weeks solid, so it was kind of, and that end of that 3 weeks was kind of when this game was coming out, so quite a few people were asking them like, can you not just drop it a bit early so we've actually got something to do during the lockdown? And then they didn't move it forward, but as it transpired, yeah, the lockdown carried on for God knows, I can't even remember in the end. We're getting on 2 odd years. Yeah, like those trees there that are burnt on the ground, that's the one that really do hook on the chassis of this one. I think I do get caught on them at some point. And like I say with this vehicle, it's when you're going along normal roads, that's when the slowness particularly shines. When you're going there, even now it feels a little bit slow, but the more off-roady that you take it, the more it balances out. It's sort of one of those vehicles. It's not as prominent as like the TUZ 420 Tatrin, but that's one of those vehicles that it goes slow, but then it doesn't matter if you're going on the road or just like the most ruthless off-road conditions on the game, it kind of just plows along at the same speed regardless, really. This still gets slowed down more, but yeah, it's odd how like on the actual sort of worst terrain it kind of claws it back a bit, because it still pretty much keeps its own pace going. And at least, as I've said before, one nice thing with this, you can have the crane sideboard and ramped flatbed, which was part of the reason I brought this, because bear in mind for this mission, those concrete slabs are kind of scattered on the map, so you're going to have to collect them manually with a crane. There's no way of getting like to auto-load them, so yeah, there is quite a few vehicles. Well, probably not the loads, relatively speaking, but yeah, there's, you know, various vehicles that can have the crane sideboard and trailer option. But I think, I mean, stuff like that, Tony Tager, the second Tager we've got that's got like a bit of a longer chassis, that can have the crane and all that. I've used that quite a bit recently. Like I said, this is a vehicle we've been given for this phase, so I wanted to use it more than I have, hence why I even tried it with this mission. Yeah, as I was driving through there, I hit that rock and tipped. I reckon I could have got this started back up, but I know it like did the saving thing not long before, so I just quit and reloaded it. Yeah, hit those rocks, and that managed to completely delete a tyre and take a big fat chunk of the suspension with it as well. And this bit coming up, kind of where the blue marker is now, you'll see there's like an invisible wall that I hit. I mean, it did alright climbing up this rock. I was pretty happy with that. It's worked out quite nice. As like the front sat down, it sort of seesawed its way over and did pretty well. But yeah, now I'm basically hitting like an invisible wall, because this is why I was looking around in the camera, and I've edited most of it out, but then I reversed, took a run up. I'm hitting something again, and I could tell at this point it is like, again, I've edited a bit out, but I was moving the trailer with the winch. It's not, the trailer's not caught on anything. My tyres don't appear to be caught on anything. There's no rocks that are stopping me. By now I've kind of driven enough to where I've sort of chewed my tyres into the ground quite a bit. Yeah, so then this is like that rock ledge again. I think I just kept it like really sort of tight to the inside. That's what she said. And whatever it was I was hitting, you could almost sort of see there where the front wheel kind of looked like it clipped something. And then yeah, because I was trying to sort of keep to the inside of there, I tipped over. You see the old loaf kept me propped up enough to where my engine's still running, so I could just stick a winch out, flip myself back to my wheels. And then I got the loaf back on the roof with the crane, but then I restored the crane and it kind of stuck up the loaf's arse a bit. So oh no, I'm prostate loaf flashbacks. Well yeah, so it was kind of like stuck on the crane again. And it reminded me of that video I did a while ago, but where I was with the dolphin in Northport, and he ended up hanging on to the crane, which he's doing now. See, taking up even less room. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's pretty much pole dancing. I mean, what an absolute unit of a horse, of a professional, of a vehicle. Couldn't go. It's flash dance. It's his Irene Cara. Yeah, a bit of a boat tippy test. Go that way, like nope. Which obviously, I mean, I didn't do this on purpose, but it's quite a nice opportunity to see what the weight mechanics of the vehicle are. Which, to be fair, even though this thing is kind of tippy, you can see it kind of started to lean over and did actually fight against it. Some vehicles won't. As soon as they're tipping, they'll just gladly go along with it. And yeah, I want to go off to the left. There's obviously like made this a bit awkward. That yellow box I've just driven past, kind of where I was hitting that invisible barrier, that ended up being the destination for... God, what was the name of that mission? I don't know, I did it the other day though, with the Taiga. So I sort of ended up going back through that way. Yeah, this was a bit of an awkward corner to go around to the left. I mean, it kind of looks like you can cut through, and for the most part, I mean, I did. If I made it through, it counts. But yeah, like I say, going around that corner, this thing ain't got the steering for it. Close-ish to tipping there. I think I just fired a panic winch out before we even find out the hard way. It took its sweet time, but we're pretty close to the gateway now. Which, I mean, yeah, it's one of them. I sort of was like, well, I could just edit out the journey to the burned forest map, but I don't know. Since I probably won't be using this vehicle that much more. And, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's a SnowRunner video. See, that tree, not only did my axles get caught on it, but now the trailer behind me, that's also getting hooked up on it. I think I almost tipped again, but I fired a panic winch out. But yeah, it's stuff like that, that the Dan, for example, just drove over that tree, and it didn't get caught on the chassis. And I'm pretty certain the Dan even has smaller tyres than this, so in theory, the axle in the middle of the tyres kind of should be sitting up higher on this than the Dan, if anything. And yeah, I mean, I know I've had the odd little bit of messing around when like the loaf was pole dancing and so on, but I've come up to 19.5 minutes to get from the garage to the gateway, so say 18.5 minutes, because I was probably talking for like the first minute about the mission and that. By comparison, the Dan took about, I think it was like 9 minutes and 10 seconds. So as near as makes no difference, like literally half the time. And Dan isn't exactly, you know, famed for being rapid. He's still got the advanced special gearbox and is bloody slow anyway. But yeah, eventually we got there. And like I say, there's the 3 lots cargo, and then I wanted to go up that hill when, if you look on the map, like there is a road that sort of loops round to the right, that isn't even that far to go, and yeah, essentially takes you from the bottom of that hill to the top of it. It's the hill I mainly got caught up on, which I was aware at the time that obviously it'd be easier to just reverse the vehicle and go round. But yeah, I think there was a certain element of stubbornness and curiosity and just kind of, I don't know, hoping it went quicker and better up the hill, so it'd kind of win a few points back, this vehicle. There's like a certain element of, I don't really want to, I don't know, when you think, I won't do that, I'll just go and do it the easy way. And then I start thinking, well, did I avoid that because I wouldn't be able to do it or whatever? If I knew the vehicle was completely capable of getting up the hill, it's when, yeah, there's no curiosity or whatever, it sort of doesn't bother me, I'll just, like, yeah, whatever, I'll go the easy way. But yeah, but as this is a newer vehicle, and I wasn't 100% sure, I did actually get up this hill though, on the exploration video, which at the time I didn't realise just quite how slow this vehicle was overall, so I ended up doing the exploration video in it. Yeah, these are the 3 concrete slabs. Nice thing is, at least this thing's, because it's the American one, it's got the yellow crane, which seems to have a little bit more reach. It's not much, but it's just enough to where you can just about get cargo like onto the trailer. The game was moaning again though about impossible to pack cargo, which I don't know why. There was like a window for about a year and a half. The game was really lenient on that. It just let you pack cargo light. It didn't. It only had to just be touching the trailer. But for whatever reason, about, I don't know, 6 to 8 months ago, they seem to have like made it a lot stricter again on just moaning about it. Thankfully, I was in lazy mode, but the radius of the crane actually reached it. But you can see now the crane like can barely lift it really. And again, this yellow one's actually sort of faring better than the blue. The blue one, particularly since this phase, Jesus Christ, should barely even be allowed the name crane. Yeah, couldn't quite reach. Give it a little nudge. It's funny as well, it normally moans about the cargo with the first one. Like, when you put cargo on top of the first one, it usually doesn't mind it. Just, yeah, sort of accepts it and auto-loads it. Get it unpacked, install the crane, honk the horn. And yeah, like I say, at this point, I could have taken a sharp right-hand turn. To be fair, it is a bit awkward to cut through on the right. You may even have to like double back on yourself and kind of loop back round past the warehouse to go up the road, but you can see, I mean, the hill looks pretty short. The road essentially just goes around behind those trees. And yeah, pops back out at the top. Which I used a winch on that tree just to get me going here. But like I say, with this vehicle, it's supposed to have like the strongest engine in the game, and you can see with the wheels, they give up really easily. And yeah, like I say, on the exploration video, I came up this hill in this truck, and it was pushing its luck a bit then. Obviously, I've kind of made the situation even trickier, having a ramped flatbed and 3 lots of cargo, but like 6 slots worth of cargo. But yeah, this thing just, I reckon other vehicles, like, I don't know, Bruce or whatever, even if it was engine power-wise or whatever, couldn't climb up this hill. I still think the tyres would be spinning and putting a bit more effort in. I mean, you can hear the engine winding up on this. It kind of makes the right noises as far as that goes. But, I don't know. All talk and no trousers, or whatever the saying is, because, yeah, makes the noises, but it don't really get moving anywhere. So ended up jumped the loaf off the roof, using him as like a mobile winch point, kind of putting him further up the hill, attaching the winch to him and slowly hoisting my way up there. Which, yeah, I mean, by this point I decided, you can tell when I get the loaf off the roof, that's when it's time. That's when I definitely mean business, and I'm getting stubborn with it, because again, I quite like just sitting the loaf on the roof, leave him there. And I mean, yeah, this hill is, I will say it's a shame, because this hill is like ridiculously awkward, considering it's, you kind of want to use it, but the rocks are all on awkward angles and everything, and it really doesn't help the situation. Yeah, I was running low on fuel with the Derry, because again, I've edited quite a lot out. I was sat around here messing around for quite a while. I think all this footage I got like the other day, and then it was somewhere kind of like probably near the end of this hill climb. I finally I did that then, kind of like, well, the other day as well, but a day or two later. Yeah, so I did some fuel runs back to that maintenance trailer I'd left near the entrance, so it did come in handy eventually. I had to do 4 runs as well with the loaf. I fully filled this truck up though, the roof rack on this truck, and then obviously fully filled the loaf up and the loaf roof rack. So I kind of knew I had enough juice to just keep messing around on this hill. I mean, as you can hear, the engine's buzzing away. I'm not really moving anywhere. You can see the tyres are not doing a hell of a lot. I'm just kind of using quite a lot of fuel at the minute. Using fuel and making noise. And yeah, essentially, there's a few trees you can winch to, but I couldn't quite reach them, so long story short, I edited a hell of a lot out, really, because it would just make the video a lot longer than it needed to be, really. But yeah, the loaf was kind of slowly pulling me up the hill, getting me to the next like tree winch point or whatever, and I could just sort of, yeah, give myself a little boost on like the actual trees and then reach the loaf again. Bit of jiggling with the steering. Slow progress. I think now is probably like the second night or whatever, once, because I think I went for the fuel runs kind of near the start of that. So got the loaf to the top of the hill. There were some trees up here which I couldn't quite reach the tree from the winch point of the Derry, but the loaf, because he's goddamn professional, he has a bit more length. He can actually reach, like, that's why I knew if I backed the loaf up to the tree, his winch point had reached the Derry, even though the Derry can't reach the loaf or the tree. So then I winched from the Derry, from the loaf to the Derry, pulled that a little bit nearer. And basically, like, once I got a little bit nearer, then I could reach that. In theory, I mean, reach the tree, but I actually believe I am winched to the loaf now. In fact, yeah, I definitely am, because I've got the thing at the bottom of the screen that says, like, to turn the engine on or off. But yeah, because the loaf pulled the Derry a bit nearer, now the Derry could reach when I could, you know, drive the Derry, so I could actually turn, like, the diffs on and low range and all that. Once you're winching from the loaf, it obviously just automatically puts this thing back into auto diffs off, you know, just not really putting a lot of effort in. So yeah, a lot of faffing around. Like I say, these rocks at the top of this hill, they could have made them a little bit, I don't know, more sensible, because I mean, long story short, that hill is basically a waste of time. It's way more awkward than it needs to be, and the little road that loops around is like, you know, 30 seconds, a minute drive or something. I was just doing it out of pure stubbornness, but yeah, if they'd made that a little bit fairer, it'd probably actually be like a little bit of a challenge. At the minute, it's not really a challenge, it's more of a troll. Yeah, got the loaf back on. Because I'm on a hill, it was like lining the loaf up was being a pain, so I just kind of held him like a rugby ball for a little bit. And look, the vehicle wouldn't even set off now. I had to put a winch to a tree just to get me to set off. Once I had set off, it started driving under its own steam again. But yeah, for that few seconds where I was just sat there completely still, it was no handbrake on or anything. I was flooring it. I was just not doing anything. And yeah, we finally got past that bit anyway, so now there's a little bit of a drive through the mountains and yeah, to the quarry. Yeah, it's funny, it's a bit random, but because obviously my granddad sounded pretty ill earlier, my uncle ended up coming over, and I've heard this story before, but I've heard it from my granddad a couple of times, but then yeah, he was sort of telling me as well, and yeah, it was pretty random. But shortly after the Second World War, my granddad was in the army, like the National Service, and they ended up being like a played the euphonium, and he was like a royal appointed bandsman or something. He got pretty good, like whenever he was in, yeah, like the Royal Army band thing. But he was like, I don't know, the band that was like selected that could play in front of the Queen and stuff if ever that needed to happen. And he ended up being stationed in Berlin. And at the time, there was he was basically opposite the Spandau prison, and a guy called Rudolf Hess was in that prison. And my granddad ended up meeting him, which, yeah, it was just pretty random, because that Rudolf Hess was like the right-hand man of Hitler. I think, like, he fought in the First World War, but then I think between the First and Second World War, he was like Hitler's right-hand man, kind of, you know, rose with him kind of to where, like, the Nazi Party and all that. But then I think during the Second World War, he was still like a ruthless Nazi and all that, but he kind of got sidelined a bit. He sort of, you know, not as close to Hitler as he probably was, and so I suppose then it was like Goebbels and Gorman and all those sort of people that kind of then became more like Hitler's right-hand man. But then that Rudolf Hess guy ended up nicking a Messerschmitt plane or whatever and coming over to Scotland, parachuted out, trying to do some peace treaty with England, but not under like the command of Hitler. He just sort of randomly did it one night. But yeah, it was just pretty mad. He ended up being arrested and going to prison, not my granddad, like this Rudolf Hess guy. And then at some point, like after the war, yeah, he was transferred to that Spandau prison in Berlin. And my granddad said, like, while he was stationed at the base there in Berlin, their base overlooked the Spandau prison, so he could see this Rudolf Hess guy walking around the yard every day. I don't know exactly what year it was, but I know, like, shortly after the war and the Nuremberg trials and all that, there was like a few pretty high up Nazis basically that were kept in that Spandau prison, but over the next years or whatever they released them, and in the end it was like only that Rudolf Hess that was left in this prison. But yeah, my granddad said he could see him like walking around in the prison yard, and there was a tree with a bench on it, and that Rudolf Hess used to go up to the tree and headbutt the tree every day. And then my granddad basically said to, I don't know, like his superior, the army, that he wants to meet this Hess guy, and they were like, yeah, absolutely not. But then he kept asking, and they said as well, like the army were like, why on earth would you want to speak to him? And he said, I don't know, like I'll speak to him about music. I think it was one of them. It's just a pretty crazy to be opposite, like Hitler's right-hand man in prison. And then yeah, after like the third time asking, the army said, fair enough, we'll let you go and talk to him, but you've got to be with two of the band members, like, yeah, because he was in that band. I assume, you know, to, I don't know, mate, like they basically said you can only talk about music, and yeah, you're not allowed to talk about anything else, and yeah, you've got to have those two people with you as well, kind of, I assume, to corroborate that the conversation didn't go on to anything else. And then yeah, that was it. He met him, like, you know, the guy was like a Nazi. It's not like my granddad was like wanted to meet him like that. It was just, I think, because it's pretty crazy that, you know, he's like just there in the prison next to him. But yeah, it's just pretty mad when you think about it. Just one of those, I don't know, he's met all sorts of people. He's like, yeah, he's been all over the place back in the day. But yeah, it's just pretty mad that it's like Hitler's right-hand man. And he, so yeah, seen him in prison. Even stuff like, he went to French airport once, Charles de Gaulle airport, whatever, before he goes to China, because he used to go there to do with fabrics and that. And he met, I don't know the guy, but he must be like an old famous musician, Roy Castle or something. And this Roy Castle had lost his trumpet. The airport had lost his trumpet, and my granddad just started talking to him. I don't even know if he knew he was that Roy Castle, some famous guy. But then yeah, the guy's like not happy because he'd lost his trumpet, and then my granddad went and helped him find it at the airport. And yeah, he's got all sorts of things he's been up to back in the day. Met all kinds of random people. Yeah, things were going well. I finally got to the quarry, And then I wasn't really paying attention. I was kind of looking off to the left of the screen, just down into the quarry, and I didn't really realise until it was too late that there's a bit of a slope here, to say the least. It kind of dips down on one side quite a lot, enough to where this vehicle rolled. Thankfully though, you see, because I was holding the loaf like a rugby ball, when I landed, he propped me up enough to where the vehicle was still like able to start its engine. So then as you can see, it fired the crane up, pushed that down into the ground, which was enough to tip me back to my wheels. And then, yeah, got to load this stuff again. To be fair, I actually kind of got on with it pretty quickly this time. Just check. I'm surprised it let me actually, because just as I was watching there, the bit of cargo pretty much started to slide off. I think it just wedged against this. That's the one. That's what you need, is that little flick at the end. Which, again, the yellow crane's got just that little extra bit that kind of, yeah, your chances of getting that little flick are a lot better. The blue one's just usually too awkward. Which I kind of knew I was pushing it a little bit at this point. Just because I'd already obviously tipped that way. The vehicle started to go pretty much balanced like this, and maybe it's the crane leg that's kind of propped into the floor, but yeah, it pretty much hovered like that. Use the crane as sort of a counterweight, which is still possible. You still could tip when it's like this, but obviously helps kind of counterbalance it a bit, and then yeah, sort of drive forward, steer into the tip. Get to slightly more level ground. So yeah, like I say, sort of beware when you get to that section of map, because as you can see it leans over quite a lot. And yeah, I'd got this far. I couldn't finish the mission now without me loaf. Had to load him on there out of principle. But yeah, I just stuck him on the cargo instead. And yeah, like I say, this is the road into the quarry. It's not too bad, other than, as you can see coming up, there's like a bit of a sharp U-turn, which they always seem to do on the quarries we've had on this game. And yeah, this vehicle is not thrilled about U-turns. I mean, there's a good example of like this vehicle just seems to bleed so much speed. That was in high gear, but yeah, it was pretty slow, to be fair. It looked more like medium low or low low. Yeah, long story short, I was going around the corner and you can see there I put the handbrake on and it was still rolling forward. I was just in the middle of kind of getting into reverse and it kept rolling forward, so the front end ended up tipping off. You can see at this point I'm near enough out of fuel, so I quit edit there, but I just tried to say refilled and refueled. Refueled the Derry. The old loaf, he jumps off. One final little headbutt on the back of the Derry, give him a little boost. But I mean, yeah, I was planning on sort of making the U-turn, but the vehicle kind of had other plans, sort of rolled off the end of the rocks, so I had to make a jump for it. And you can see now, I mean, it's a stupid place to put a concrete block that clipped with my tyres. I think the first time it blew the tyre, and then I clipped it again. I don't know if it popped both tyres or not. But yeah, unless you're supposed to just drive the long way round, which seems a bit, I don't know, at this point, as I'm getting there one way or another, even if the vehicle survives. Drop them off finally, and we're done. Which I have to say, the amount of money you get on this mission is pretty terrible. 8.5 grand odd, which is pretty useless. But one, you need to do this mission really to unlock another contract, and you get a repair service, so that's kind of handy. Where it says warehouse available on that, there is, but it's kind of, it's basically you unlock like a cargo that to do the last contract. I think you can get oversized cargo from here, which one of the last contracts is you got to take oversized cargo to the railway station on Albany River. There it is, yeah, oversized cargo, so 4 slots. So yeah, they're, like I say, it says you get a warehouse, but it's only a warehouse with one type of cargo for one mission, but well, yeah, only needs that. So it's not really useful for anything else. I was flying along here, and then BAM! Oh my god. Speak to me, Lo4f. He's all good. See his little tyres wiggling. He's wiggling the bush. You get a chance to wiggle the bush, you take it. Yeah, you can see now though, he just starts to lean over a little bit. You see, that's part of the magic of the Lo4f. And then when he wiggled there, when he found some grip on the mud, I was like, oh yes. I was like Richard Attenborough from Jurassic Park now.
Come on, little one, come on. Come on then. Come on then. Very good. Push. Push. Very good.
What an absolute goddamn velociraptor of a vehicle. He made it. He's a professional till the end. He doesn't quit. And yeah, make my way up here. I'll just give you a little tour of the bonuses you unlock for doing this mission. There's a mission here, Gold Rush. Oh yeah, that's the mission. I think you've got to like visit 3 locations, but it won't tell me where they are. Yeah, this is a truck repair square, so you fix yourself up. Did the horn, scared the shit out of a barrel. That was pretty good. Found a trailer here. I'll investigate that. It's got some fuel in it, so you get a 2,000 litre trailer. And that ANK-38 civilian actually isn't mine. That's one that was on the map as well. If you go near enough to it, you'll, you know, truck discovered and all that. So between all that, if you cash it all in, it's actually not a bad haul in the end, I suppose. But yeah, that's about it for today though. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Thanks for my Patreon members. Get yourself a Lo4f, because as you can see, he's a goddamn professional, and I'll be back soon.